Well, good evening, everybody. Everybody, let me have you talk back at me. If you are out there listening, just send me a note and say good evening. It is good to be here for another Tuesday Together Talk. And we are coming to the close of our Black History Month series, Privilege, Colorism, and Natural Hair. Listen, this has been an exciting series we've had throughout the month of February. We have learned from one another. We have shared some of our personal stories. We have just had a good time having conversation. I have had some great guest conversationalists that have joined me throughout this conversation, throughout this series. And so tonight is going to be just as great. I have some great folks hanging out in the studio waiting to come on and have this conversation tonight as we continue. So as we prepare, listen, I need for y'all to talk back at me. That's how we do on Tuesday Together Talk. So if you're here, just send a shout out and say, hey, good evening. I'm blessed today, or however you might be feeling. I just want you all to share with us how you are feeling. So, as you all know, I'm Reverend Rebecca Burrow. I am the founder and CEO of Building Reconciliation, Inclusion, Diversity, and Gender Equity, known as Bridge to Our Friends. We are on the path of trying to create a just and more equitable world, and we have plenty of partners and allies and folks in the movement that share that same goal with us. That's what we do at Bridge. So I'm also, as you know, the host of Tuesday Together Talk, which is under the Bridge umbrella. So tonight, before we get started in this conversation, I just want to remind you that this is an interactive conversation. Our guest conversationalists will share, but we also expect for our folks out there that's listening to share. Hey, Lisa, thank you for chiming in. Lisa, good evening to you. And so I want to start this evening real quick as we're waiting for folks to come into the room. I want to ask anybody out there, if you're listening, if you've ever heard of the Tignon laws. Now, I want this, I'm going to put it in the chat, in the comment, so that you can look it up. And by the end of this show, I want you to have gained just a little bit more education. But imagine, as a Black woman, that your beauty is so overwhelming to people that there are laws put in place to make you hide your hair because it is deemed too beautiful and it's a threat. So that's what happened. But I'm going to let you go ahead and look up some of that history. I put it down in the chat. Check it out. And then we're going to comment on that before the evening is over. Good evening. Welcome, Ivan Wright. Greetings to the village, he says. Sarah Gilbert. Good evening, Sarah. Glad you can join us. We've missed you. Good evening, Jerry Lee Brown, who has also been one of our guest conversationalists. And of course, Lisa Friday, who was on back in December, her and her sisters. So now that we've gotten some of the formalities out of the way, let's just go ahead and get in this conversation. The first person I'm going to bring into the studio this evening is my very own sister. This is her first appearance on Tuesday Together Talk. Rhonda Houston, thank you for joining me this evening and being a guest on Tuesday Together Talk. Welcome.
Thank you.
Relax. Okay. So Rhonda, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am like you said, your sister, your oldest sister. I am a wife, a mother, a grandmother. I am a I am still employed, ready to retire. I have 25 years at my company right now. And first, let me say thank you for having me, Reverend Rebecca. Sorry about that. I just tend to every day strive to be the best that I can be, growing up with our teachings and our followings, and just trying to make sure that where I walk, how I walk, talk, it is a demonstration of what God is wanting from us as His people. So
Yes.
thank you for having me, especially for this type of a platform. I am ready to go.
Well, I'm excited that you're here this evening. Thank you again for being here. All right, I'm going to bring another first time guest into the studio, Michelle McFarlane. Michelle, I've met, oh my goodness, when I moved to Florida back in, I guess it's been about 11, 12 years
10,
ago.
10,
It's been
12.
a little
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, thank you for being here and welcome to Tuesday Together Talk. I'm excited that you're here to share in this conversation. So, Michelle, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much, Rebecca, for inviting me on this platform. I'm just so excited to kind of jump in and hear all what everyone wants to share. So, what can I say? Well, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I've been living in Florida for over 20 years. People say I'm a Floridian, but I go, I don't know about that. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I'm also an executive director for a local nonprofit, and we provide family support and youth development services to children and families, and we try to do the same things to support them to become independent leaders, and so that's what I do, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for being here. All right. So, we have a couple of, I guess they are, wow, they've been here a few times. So I guess we're gonna go ahead and bring them in, but they need to introduce themselves again for those of you that don't know them. I'm gonna bring my covenant daughter into the room. Go and I'm thankful that she's here. She has continued to be a rock to me as we go through this new journey in our lives. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Sharon Lynn.
Yes, I am Sharon Lynn Burrow Anderson. I live outside of Philadelphia right now. Thanks to my parents, I lived in many places across this country, but mainly grew up in Indiana. Spent a lot of time in Virginia after I left college. And I work in the Medicare compliance space, but I probably consider myself more of a creative type person, very much in the art and music. So that's more my passion, but I do enjoy my work in compliance in the legal field. I have one daughter who is 14. I have two dogs, and I'm happy to be here to continue this conversation.
Thank you, Sharon, for coming back to join us. You have really helped move this conversation over this Black History Month. So thank you again for being here. Now, this other person that I'm bringing into the studio, y'all know her because she seems to hang out here pretty often. I think she's trying to take my space. But anyway, I'm going to bring Carrie Yvette Hepburn Brown into the space. Carrie, I met, oh goodness, she's, I guess, about 2010. And so we've done a lot of work, and she is definitely one of the people I collaborate pretty frequently when it comes to doing the work of racial equity. So, Carrie, introduce yourself.
Hello, family. It is great to be back on this side of the screen. You know, I have a lot to say when I'm on the other side. I am a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, and a native Floridian. So that impacts quite a lot. As Rebecca mentioned, we do a lot of work together. And in my professional work, I'm really hoping to build communities to create a more equitable world. So it's always a pleasure to be here. I'm particularly interested in this conversation. I've been holding on to a story all month because I wanted you to be as surprised as the rest of the folk to tell you about
Oh boy.
how this combination of both colorism and hair has impacted me.
Okay. All right, Carrie, thank you for being here again. To all of our guest conversationalists, thank you for being here. For those of you that are hanging out on YouTube or Facebook, please make sure you like and comment on this conversation that we're going to have. And matter of fact, I already have a question for y'all out there. I want you to start answering this question. How do you describe your hair texture? Now, although we are going to start the conversation on colorism, I want y'all to start answering this question. How do you describe your hair texture as a Black person? I don't care where you were born, whether in Jamaica, Haiti, wherever you, Africa, wherever America, as a Black person, how do you describe your hair texture? Now, I sent our guest conversationalists some questions. As Carrie just indicated, I have no idea what their answers might be. This is an organic, authentic conversation. And so I want to make sure that we go ahead and jump right in. So I'm gonna start with you, Rhonda, and then I'm gonna go to Michelle because this is their first time being here. Uh, During our first conversation about colorism, I presented these labels to the previous guest conversationalists, and I want to see if any of these labels, if you've ever heard them or experienced them. Darky, red bone, light bright, almost white, dark skin, light skin, purple black, high yellow, jet black, and blue black. And those are just a few of the names I've heard people within the Black community call one another. Rhonda, do any of these names or these labels sound familiar to you?
Unfortunately, Rebecca, yes, it does. And the unfortunate part of it is the label is within the family, and that's where it started. Um, Being told that I was light bright, darn near white, um, being called a yellow bee, um, all in the family. And that's where I think this all starts and where I feel it should all end in the home. The dinner table being a conference room for deciding what we will call our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews, when we are all descendants of a beautiful nation full of different complexities, but beautiful no matter what the complex.
Yeah.
So, yes, I have been called that. I have experienced it, and it starts within the family.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. I love that you said the dinner table being that conference room, so to speak, because there's so much that transpires. And I know families don't, you know, it's rare that they get together and have dinner anymore. But when we were growing up, it was very common to sit at that dinner table and to know that so much can impact your self-esteem and self-worth at the table, which is oftentimes the that space that we're always talking about occupying, right? Within the Black community, give us a seat at the table, right? And so when we have a seat at our own table, we have a tendency to do harm. So thank you for sharing that. Michelle, what about you? Do you remember hearing any of those labels?
Yes. I grew up in in Brooklyn, and although I lived in a community that was mostly Black, sprinkles of white, the few that were still left, um, I went to all white school clear across town, so I heard every name for every group, you know. But for me personally, one time, I don't remember when, my mom told me the story that my dad called me Darky, right? And she, I guess she got mad at him and told her, "Don't call my kid Darky." And then my brother, because he's a clown, he would turn the lights out, and then he'd be like, "Where you at?" Look like he's looking for me. So those type of, but I will say I didn't have it like, I didn't have like a constant of that, but those were, I do remember, having that. And so as we go, I've experienced a few things around all these topics. So yes, but yeah, my dad got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good that somebody put their foot down, right?
Yeah, she did. She told him, don't you call my kid no Darky. So
I think what's amazing to me is that people often think, in our families, that some of these labels are terms of endearment, and they're not. They're not. I'm going to go to Sharon. Sharon, you gave some really good comments about this on this question in our last conversation. You have anything you want to add?
Let's see. I think I wasn't expecting to answer the question because I already answered it. So you want us to focus on like being called those specific names.
Yeah.
I think I'll just say again, I don't recall specifically being called any of those names, but I definitely was aware of them, aware of there being a preference for lighter skin in certain spaces, preference for straight hair, long hair, that type of thing. So I definitely remember that as a kid, experiencing that in school.
Yeah.
At home, I was the only child, so there was nobody to compare me to. I always felt like, in our house, and this is something I didn't understand until I got older. In our house, my mother was a brown skinned woman, but she was lighter than me and my dad. So I guess in thinking about, what's attractive to a man, seemed like his preference because he chose someone lighter. Now she wasn't light. To me, she was light because she was lighter than me. But when I got older and would hear her talk about some things and found out that she felt like she was a darker skinned woman, I think because of language that was used in her household to kind of describe, because there were 8 kids, and everybody's a different shade. So I mean, that surprised me because to me, she was always the lighter one, but I guess she was getting a different message growing up that, she identified herself as a darker woman. It's very interesting how we take on other people's perception of us,
Yes.
even when it's not accurate.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so true, Sharon, because I think even in my family, all of my siblings, I think we are all a different hue, right, Rhonda? We are all we go from very light to brown,
Yes.
and for me, I don't remember thinking about my brothers being, as they're being darker, being a negative. To me, it was just the Maynard children. This is who we are. And so I think also that this whole idea of what's light, what's considered light, what's considered dark, what's in the middle, and all of that is really relative and has a lot to do with geographic location. For example, I think I became so more aware of my skin tone when I moved to Florida than I did up north.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually for me, when I moved to Florida, I really began to get a good sense of my light skin privilege when I moved to Florida. So, Carrie, What about you?
Yes. So this actually is a great segue into the story. I have heard many of those names, and I was thinking about the context. I think most of those were not used in a way directly in conversations with me, but when I first became familiar with those terms, part of it was, from Rainbow, Black History Trivia, those kinds of things. But when I was in my early 20s, I was joining a couple of girlfriends. We had gone down to Black Beach weekend. Black folks, we can make an event out of everything. And so this was back in the years where we were descended upon Daytona Beach and taken over for a couple of days. So it's walking down the beach with my two girlfriends who were probably one, I would say Rebecca's probably your skin tone, and the other probably Rhonda, your skin tone. And they said, "Hey, red and bald head." And it was interesting to me because at that point I had my natural, but the fact that they use colors to say something about the other girls, and then because I would consider that I have a complexion that's probably like in the middle, right? I mean, I'm brown, caramel, pecan, whatever. I love all those fancy terms about it, but I rarely have people referring to me in any type of way as it relates to skin tone. But I thought it was very interesting that they couldn't think of anything to say related to my skin tone. So what they decided to say was something about my hair. And I wonder now when I think about that comment, if they thought that they were saying, "Hey, red," if those were compliments, and if they thought bald head was a compliment or not. This was at a time where, as older people told me, they're not wearing their hair like that. I started wearing my hair natural before it became a trendy thing to do, and that was just a personal preference. Because just let's be honest, I was never good with hair, and so that's actually one of the things that led, and then it was a sign for me of like some freedom and independence. Finally, I could do what I want with my hair. But as it relates to colorism and how this all intersects together, I just think it's a really interesting phenomenon that's how someone referred to me or to us as a group. They couldn't figure out what else to say.
Right.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
So how do we think our grandchildren and our children feel when we give them the names Chocolate Drop, Lemon Drop, and and we want them to be identified as such instead of being identified for the name that we gave them at birth?
Yeah.
I have twin grandsons. Joshua is of a lighter skin. Joseph is not too far behind, but he is browner. And I would hate for them to hear, "Oh, which one is the dark one? Which one is the light one?" Their names are Joseph and Joshua. And I want them to be identified as such. Don't give them Chocolate Drop and Lemon Drop. Don't do that to my grandbabies, But we're so eager to name our families. And we don't understand that we are raising young men and young women who are now children, but they are growing up to be adults. And this stuff is going with them. So when they see the next person, "Oh, I'm going over on this side with the chocolate drops. Well, I'm going on this side with the lemon drops." When in essence, we're all humans. And like I said before, descendants of a beautiful culture. But we have got to stop the name calling in the household, to stop the name calling in the streets. If we don't stop it, it's going to continue to just continue in our generations. And this division, this thinking that because I'm light or I'm brown. I watched a movie the other day, and it was a very powerful movie about women, full of the brown skin complexion. I didn't look at them as being brown skinned women. I looked at the plot of the movie of teaching me that women got power. I don't care what my complexion is, but until we stop it within our own race, this is going to continue. It's not somebody else doing it to us.
Right.
We're doing it to ourselves.
Right.
So we got to stop within the home. Oh, yeah, my chocolate daughter and my lemon daughter. That's got to stop. And if we don't stop it now, it just continues to grow. And we blame others, but
Yeah.
it's us
Yeah.
who's doing it to ourselves. I don't think I'm no more not considered an African American than somebody who is darker than me. Because when it gets through with them and this society, I go out on that street, I go to work, and I am treated just like what they said we were back in the day.
Yeah.
It's no difference.
Yeah.
But we have got to stop making the difference in our children and in our grandchildren. Her hair is nappy. No, her hair is not nappy. Her hair is thick and it's beautiful. You tell your grandchildren when they get in the mirror, look at yourself and say you're beautiful. Don't tell her, oh, you got nappy hair, we're going to have to do this. Your hair is beautiful. We got to start it as the race, and until we do,
let me interject, because
I'm
the
sorry.
preacher, we are preacher kids, right? So the
It runs in the family.
start coming out that we get on a roll. But thank you for sharing, because you really have highlighted the where this conversation is going tonight, what we are here to talk about, and that is how we can start, how we as Black people can deconstruct all of the internalized racism that was really constructed by enslavement, by systemic racism, and all of those other issues that we have in our society. How can we take our power back and own our beauty? And so with that being said, I want to ask this question. I'm going to ask a question after I read this comment from Ivan Wright. As a historical reminder, being accepted is a normal human comforter. It is. And that's why we had people to try to pass. Those of lighter hue had more access to learning and therefore became more of the preferred by all sides, if being honest. Absolutely. Fast forward to 2023, what is preferred and less threatening hue on TV ads? So we know. And that is that whole piece where we talk about light skin privilege and that preferred thing, and how even what I have experienced here in Florida, this whole idea, Lord have mercy, if one more person posts their red bone kid, it's a badge of honor that I've noticed in Florida. So let me ask this question of you, Michelle. We're thinking about some of the layers, because this is a multifaceted issue with many layers.
Absolutely.
How do you see us moving forward as a people to start deconstructing some of these issues that we have as a result of what was imposed upon us?
Well, I think one of the things is like these platforms, right? Because the more people share, like I think Jerry posted a comment that Jamaicans say browning. I know that my family is Jamaican, so I'm very familiar with when people say you're a browning. And so, so it spans not just here, it's across the Caribbean Sea, it's over it. So it's not just here in America, it's all over. And so I think these platforms are an amazing, exceptional way of putting the information out there. More people that learn about your history, okay, and where you come from. I think that's part of it too. When you don't know who you are and from where you descend, your other people are telling you where, who you should be, right? That's one of the things we would discuss growing up in Brooklyn. Kids from the Caribbean, would say, oh, you think you're this. I said, but in Jamaica, we're not minorities, right? So we're not trying to fit into your mold. We're not trying to. So when you come here, there's a difference where you come here, you realize, oh, I'm Black. Whereas before it never occurred to you, even though, yes, there's colorism there too. But overall, those things were not something that were in your face.
Yeah.
And so you're even culturally, right? You have to think about the cultural dimensions of things when you're coming to this country as a Black person from another country and other cultures, how you're integrated into this system and how you respond. So this is, like I said, see, I don't know, Jerry, but now I do.
Right.
Jerry.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, so that's, I think these are great ways, education platforms, and people willing to be a part of this.
Yes.
You know, be a part of this platform, and the more that we can do that, I think that's moving the needle.
Yeah.
Michelle, just so you know, she yelling in the background. That's the truth. So she definitely agrees with you.
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing. And I love hearing the experience of people that weren't born in this country. And one of the reasons why is because I know even in Africa, the motherland, skin bleaching is so it's so prominent there. There is an issue. There's health orders, all sorts of things related to skin bleaching, and even people that are bleaching their baby skin and all of these things because of what they perceive to be a better hue. And so some of it, of course, is that assimilating to European culture. And some of it is just that what has been ingrained in us. Carrie, go ahead and add to this conversation.
Oh man. First of all, Rhonda, I really appreciate the point that you made. I have a lot of hangups about how we refer to children in general, but I think you raised a really good point. Just on the side, I also, anyway, we won't go there. But so I think part of it is certainly what we teach and how we talk to each other inside. But I also think there are opportunities. And lately, I've really been on a journey to get into this work that's referred to as narrative change, to really change the story about Black and brown people in general. I personally don't use the word minority. There are more Black and brown people in this country, in this world, than there are white. So how would we refer to ourselves as a minority? So I think some of it is just about our own awareness, as you said. You know, the more aware we become, the more intentional we can be. And I also think that people, even if it's just our circle of influence, people will model what they see. So I personally use the term Black. I don't use the term African American. My wife is Black. She is not African American. She's Jamaican. And I've always thought about people who don't consider themselves to be African American, but are still considered Black. How do you refer to them? And so when I'm in rooms and in spaces with people, both white and non-white and white, I'm very, very clear about why I use the term Black. And then they're like, oh, so you prefer Black, not African American? Because people think it's more PC. And so I think this idea of colorism is becoming sort of, it's been raising people's consciousness and awareness. And so I think that we do have the space to help educate. Some of it, I think, is a matter of ignorance. Now, inside our own community, certainly a lot of that is still internalized racism. But even then, sometimes people think that it's a compliment. And how do you, I mean, as you know, when someone says, hello, my beautiful Black queen, you know, they mean it in a nice way, but how do you help redirect them in those kinds of things? So I think it is sometimes a case by case situation, but I do think that there are ways that, you know, depending on the situation and depending on your level of knowledge of the person, that you can engage in conversation. And I think as we do that, each one teach one, as we begin to change the perspective of those people around us, it has that ripple effect.
Just a term I've heard, cultural conditioning, right? I've heard that a lot more recently, and that's a lot of what we have been exposed to, cultural conditioning. That's just, so it's peeling back those layers of conditioning and getting back into
Sharon Lynn,
She's quiet.
She's
Because I've been on and I've had a chance to run my mouth. So
You still got good stuff to add.
we
Come on,
just want
Sharon.
you to kind of bring this home for us, okay? As we talk about deconstructing, and we know that it's not done in a day. It's not done with a magic wand. There's just not one solution. But we need your insight. We need that brilliant mind to come on and give us some insight on how we can start what we can do, even in our homes or in our workplaces or wherever in our communities. How can we deconstruct the systemic racism, the internalized racism, the embedded thinking that we have concerning colorism? What can we
Yes.
do?
So I'm going to agree with what everybody has said so far. It is about being intentional about what we think, about what we say, about how we interact with each other, about how we interact with people outside of our culture. But like you said, it's not easy, and it requires focus. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of that right now because everybody's so distracted. Everybody's on their phone, being bombarded with all kind of information that is not important. Honestly, it's a distraction. So when we could be having conversations like this, people are talking about, whoever's in the news right now, whoever's the famous singer right now, what they wore and who they were with and how they fought and who threw the water in so and so's face. All that stuff distracts from these conversations where we could be dealing with some real issues. So I want to tag on to what Carrie was saying about Black versus African American real quick. And I also make that distinction. I think for a while there, I was using African American a long time ago. But honestly, and unfortunately, I don't have any ties to Africa that I can connect to. Unfortunately, I am more American than I am African, whether I like it or not. So that's part of why I don't use that term. I mean, I'm not offended if somebody uses it towards me, or if somebody wants to identify that way, but that's my personal choice. And that is why I choose it. I just prefer to go with Black because, a Black person in America is different from a Black person somewhere else in the world.
Yes.
And even though we all, even Caucasians, originate from Africa, my ties are so broken because of what happened to us and eventually I want to go to Africa, but I know when I get there, I'm not going to have the same connection because I've been cut off. So that's why I identify with that term more so. But getting back to your question, really just, and going back to what Rhonda said, those conversations in the home, as we're talking to our family members, as we're talking to our kids and putting that information into them when they're doing their hair and, appreciating whatever's going on up here, whether it's short, straight, curly, tight, loose, just teaching them how to appreciate that. This is yours. This is how you were born, and it's beautiful for you. And the next person may have something different, and it's still beautiful for them. We don't have to lock into one thing and say, well, this is the standard. That's the problem right there, because those other people have created this standard that they want everybody to fall in line with. And it's not just in this country. Anywhere colonizers have been in this world, that's going to be an issue, whether it's here, India, Africa, China, wherever. They've created this division between people who are already there based on color, based on hair texture. If it's not like theirs, then it's not right. So we really have to deprogram ourselves and, educate ourselves about our culture and other people's culture. And we can be proud of where we are without putting someone else's down. That's the other thing. Learn to appreciate your history, your culture, and also appreciate everyone else's and integrate that. And that's one of the biggest, problems with these people who are attacking education. That they're going to reinforce a lot of the ignorance that's already out there and prevent even us. I mean, we can always go out and read books and get the information for ourselves, but this could turn into a slippery slope where we don't even have access to that information anymore.
That's right.
I think once people realize race is a made-up construct, there's no such thing as
Right.
race to begin with. I think
Exactly.
that's another point that people need to realize.
Mhm.
You know, people's
Mhm.
features, skin color, hair is all derived from the regions in which your ancestors lived.
Yeah.
And
But
if they lived in
if
certain
you have to make them understand that point, if
right,
you get people to really understand that, that's going to blow a lot of people's minds, because
yeah,
that's what they've been basing their ideology off all this time. Well, I thought I was better because I'm this. Maybe that don't even exist.
Right.
right. There's no such thing. You know, it's just
Somebody made that up because they were greedy and they wanted to take
right.
the
Yes,
people and
yes,
use them for their free labor. That was never true. That's a story they made up and you bought into it. And now if you have to understand it's not true,
yeah.
Yeah.
they're going to have a total mental breakdown. And a lot of them are.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep. So I want to read some of these comments real quick because we got some good discussion going on. Jerry Lee, who we had mentioned earlier, Jerry Lee Brown, she was on a couple, actually, she was on the two of the segments for this series. She says, I have twins who are of lighter skin. I identify them by their names. However, the twins say their skin is Jamaican.
Yes.
Love that. Rochelle was agreeing with you, Rhonda. She said, good point, Rhonda. Sarah Gilbert said, it's sad because we put division amongst ourselves. Time to wake up.
Yeah.
Take us back to school days, the movie. Wake up. Rachel says, I agree with you, Michelle. Right on point.
Thank you.
Jerry says, oh, hey, Yachty. Is that it, Michelle?
Yachty.
Sarah said, yes, in Jamaica, you're Jamaican. In America, you were either white or black. A great divide.
Mm-hmm.
Now, thank you for tuning in this evening. He says he's watching over there on YouTube. Rachel said, Carrie's bringing up a good point when it comes to Black versus African American. Glad she is breaking that down. And that's definitely one of those terms that we've gone through some transitions, right?
Yeah.
I remember when we first started using African American, there were definitely Black folks that said, nope, that's not who I am. Some folks still wanted to lean into Negro at that point. And so Black is one of those words. It's coming back where people are learning how to appreciate it because it is more. It defines more of all of our culture and all of our heritage and our geography and all of those other things that that points to who we are. Rachel Sharon, right on point. Break it down. Renita, I love this comment. She said, my grandson was learning that certain cultures could not be with one another. So he said to his mom, so Pappy and Granny couldn't be together, which was hilarious because we're both Black. Pappy is darker. And of course, I am fair skinned. So kids notice skin tone as well. And they notice skin tone based on what they are seeing the most. And so how we define what's beautiful, even within our own culture and our own in the Black community, we have this thing about defining cute and what's not cute. So, as you all were talking, one of the word that just came to me was healing within our community, healing within our homes, healing. We have some healing to do. And Sharana, she was talking about those distractions. There are so many things distracting us from that healing.
Yeah.
Right? There's just so many things, whether it's somebody worried about who's going to the Beyonce concert and, what you believe about Beyonce or what you believe about whomever. Those distractions prevent us and keep us from having these very important conversations that we need to be having. Because I am convinced that if we come together, can you imagine to experience that power, that Blackness, that power? Oh my goodness. Okay.
That is the very reason why there's such an effort to keep us divided. I remember when I first started working in nonprofit work, and this is anyway, I won't date myself. You all know about how old I am, but I remember that we have a funder in the community who put out an opportunity for funding specifically for Hispanic families at that time. And it's the first time that I started to see this sort of separation. Now, this is, not black versus black, but people of color being divided in such a way that there were so many people who started responding and saying that this felt like they were discriminating and they were showing preference to one group of people of color versus another. And it's that, I think, was where that perpetuation of competition, and this whole mindset of like I have to go for mine, or there's not enough to share. I think that is one of the reasons why our country actually thrives on trying to perpetuate the scarcity mindset, and makes people think that we need to have this sort of competition. There's no reason for us to compete. There's more than enough to go around.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you said. When we get to the point where we realize, and I just said this recently, there are more of us than it is of them, in all kinds of ways. There are more of us that believe in social justice, that believe in equality. There are more of us people of color. There are more of us than it is of them. The problem is that they are loud, and we've been so busy being defensive, and waiting for them to give us the ball. They're not going to give us the ball. That is the whole reason they're doing this, because they want to hold on to it. If we decide that we are going to change the paradigm by having different questions, I think we would be better off.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Carrie, for closing that out. And we don't have long, but it's important that we get to this next piece of this important conversation, and that is this thing about our hair.
Yes.
Let me read these few comments real quick. Speaking of twins, children, I really hate when people call them twins and not by their names. Thank you, Lisa Wright, for sharing that. Ivan says, facts, Rebecca, healing with the requisite being understanding that there indeed exists a wound. Yes. That's a powerful statement. There is a wound. Wanda said, oh, for sure. Okay. Thank you for sharing. All of you all continue to share in this conversation. So I'm getting ready to get into probably some of the one of those things that's probably have given me the most pain in my life. And that's this conversation on hair. So and why we're talking about this, I want you all to write down these words: Ting Yong laws. I want you to be able to talk about this. I want you to look at the laws so that you understand what I mean when I say how powerful we are. They made us cover our hair because our hair was thought of as a thing of beauty, and it was threatening to white women because white men and men in general admired our hair. So they made us cover it. And you know what we did when they made us cover it? We covered our hair, and we began to learn how to put those tignons on, and we know how to put beads and everything else in them to make it beautiful. We are an innovative people, and we know how to take some things and turn it around. And that's where we are today. It's time that we take this colorism conversation and turn it around and flip it. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, this one right here. We've heard some of this before. Nappy head. Your kitchen is nappy. Good hair, bad hair, beaded hair. Remember Martin Lawrence, beady bead, pound, kinky hair, difficult hair, wild hair, pretty hair, bald head. And then they would make it sound really bad. You bald headed, not just bald head. You bald headed, greasy head. Those are a few of those labels that people within the Black community, we have labeled one another's hair. Rhonda, you've been quiet for at least 10 minutes now. So we got to draw you back in to this conversation. And the reason I'm going to start with you is because I remember I shared last conversation, the whole thing of us spending that sacred time with the iron, the
straightening comb,
the pressing comb, the straightening comb, on that fire, getting ears burnt, getting necks burnt, and all of that other stuff. How first I want to know, have you ever experienced any of those labels? And I do know the answer to that. And then I want to know, how did it impact you then? And how does it impact you now as you think about your hair?
Your hair so nappy. Who your pappy?
Who's your pappy? You some ugly child, right?
Diminishing,
Mm.
low self-esteem, depression,
Mm.
anxiety, a sense of not belonging,
Mm.
all of those things that you have as a child.
Yeah.
Take me so I can get a perm.
Mm.
I don't want them to say my hair is nappy no more.
Mhm.
I look ugly today. Uh, Only to go and get a perm and the lady burns all your hair out.
Mhm,
Mm.
So then you no longer have any hair. So now you're bald headed.
mhm,
Bald headed Rhonda. I'm not going to school.
mhm,
Missed the whole seventh grade. I'm not wearing this scarf anymore. Pain as a child
mhm.
Mm.
that grows up into your adulthood.
Mm.
Um, and people don't understand it.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm.
um, very, my self esteem was so low, I thought nothing of myself.
Mhm.
Mm.
My husband tells me now I'm beautiful. I still don't believe it.
Mm.
Mhm.
So painful,
Mm.
depressing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the things you grow up with
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. Yeah.
because you don't look like somebody else in a magazine or a book or
Mm.
60 years old and it still hurts.
Mm.
Yep. Those scars, those scars.
Mm.
And I remember as if it were yesterday
Mhm.
when we went to such and such. I won't say her name. And you got your hair relaxed. And I remember what
Mm.
happened as a result of the relaxer.
Mm.
Um,
But I wanted to
those,
fit in, so that's why we had to go get it.
Yeah.
Because I was so tired of being called nappy head. I wanted to
Mm.
fit in. I
yeah,
wanted to look like those pretty little white girls I went to school
Mhm.
with.
Yeah.
yep,
And it turned
Mm.
out wrong.
yeah,
Mm.
So
yep,
society is a killer if you let it be.
yeah,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yep. Cousin Renita says she remembers too. Yep, we had those experiences. I remember being called uh, red-headed something 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 words I cannot say. My hair was a little lighter,
Yep.
sandier color, dishwater. I used to say dirty dishwater color. That's
Mhm.
what it was.
Ugh.
Yeah, that was the color.
Yep.
the-
I
you know,
was sandy red.
yeah. So
Mm.
those things really do impact you, and especially when you get to a point where you realize that uh your hair is what you're being judged on.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Every community, all your peers, people are judging you. In school they're judging you.
Mhm.
And to realize that it impacts us, and to that magnitude that it causes depression, it keeps you from believing that you're beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And for me, it wasn't so much what white people said about my hair, it was what other Black people said
Mhm.
about my hair that
Yeah.
hurt me the most.
Yeah.
Michelle, go ahead and chime in. Let us
Oh, well, I was just gonna say a couple things. Like I said, I went to school in a predominantly white neighborhood, and I remember we were in the playground jumping rope, like with other black, few of us. And she was probably genuinely curious, but I was like, I don't want to be singled out anymore because they already called me down to the principal because, oh, you're Jamaican. Can you translate? I'm like, why? You speak English, but okay. So she came and she's trying to touch my hair, and she said, what do you use? And I was like, Crisco, and maybe she really did genuinely want to know, but at that point I was like, don't touch my hair, don't ask me, because I don't want it to be singled out about my hair, you know, and so that was one thing I remember. And people saying, "Oh, your hair is you got good hair,"
Yeah.
you know, your hair's not and not nappy or whatever. But I remember that. Oh, I never forgot that girl who asked me, you know, how do your hair get like that, and trying to touch it. Like, don't touch my hair, you know. So yeah, that's we. I guess that was my one that stuck.
Yeah.
You know, just people wanting to touch your hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't touch my hair.
So, Rhonda, I'm just going to read these for you, just so you can go to sleep on these comments tonight. Rhonda,
Yes.
you are beautiful. God created you, and your husband is right about you. Internalize that. That's how we start healing.
Yeah.
Is when people can support us
Yes.
in these places, even when we don't yet feel it. When
Right.
other people surround us and encourage us. Lisa Friday said, Rhonda, you are beautiful.
Yeah.
Ivan Wright
Thank you.
says, Rhonda wounds run deep, but not as deep as your beauty.
Oh.
So there you go. Sharon, I want you to jump into this conversation because we need to hear your thoughts on it, because you are the one person on here that is locked. So I want to hear about your experience.
So I had some type of chemical in my hair from the time I was probably 8 until my mid-20s, and I know that because my mother went back to school, she didn't have time to be messing with my hair. So that is why she started doing that. So I didn't really have a feel for what my real hair felt like for almost 20 years. Um, but I did a lot of damage to my hair, straightening it and all the perms and trying to have certain styles and make my hair do what somebody else's was doing. And my hair was not doing that. It just, that wasn't what it was trying to do. And then, you know, your scalp is burning, your scalp is itching, and it gets to a certain length and then it breaks off. You got to start all over and cut all of that. So I did all that, weaves, all that. So I have no problem with if anybody wants to relax their hair, because there is a convenience to it. And honestly, hair it's an accessory as far as I'm concerned. It could be short, it could be long. Put a wig on it, flip it, do whatever. So I'm not concerned. The only time I have a concern is when people make those changes because they don't see the value in what they already have.
Yeah.
So that's where I get concerned, and I might want to have a conversation with somebody about, well, why do you feel like you have to do that to your hair? Or what's wrong with how your hair is coming out your head naturally? But you know, if you want to do extra stuff, because I did it, then I don't see a problem with it. But I honestly didn't get a real appreciation for my hair until I stopped relaxing it. Second round with the locks. I had them once, had them down my back, cut it all off. So, and then because when the first time I just braided it and I didn't do the big chop. So I never really got the full experience. So this time I had that was my afro. And I was like, oh, this is nice.
Yes.
This, like, this is soft and I can do this with it. And yeah, it's not always predictable, but you get to be flexible and figure out what works for you. And I just found a lot of freedom in just being myself. I'm not trying to make it look like somebody else. I might watch a video to figure out how to do something, but I'm not trying to look like you. And just getting that appreciation for, you know, this is what my hair does.
Yeah.
You know, it's humid today. It's doing that. Okay, we'll work with that today. You know, it might be flying a little bit. Okay, I can put a scarf on. I'm still cute. So that was that acceptance. If I put a scarf on and I had it up on top, I'm fine with that. If somebody's looking at me when I'm outside, okay. Okay. Because I appreciate the beauty of my own face, my own skin texture, my own culture, and how we wrap our hair. And And honestly, just having those conversations or that thought process of why is it okay for Mary to come out the house with her hair doing whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't come out the house with mine. So if you want to question me, then that's the conversation we're going to have. I don't have to defend my hair because this is my hair. I want you to explain to me why it's okay for her and not okay for me.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because mine is just as valuable as the next person's. And again, it goes back to, again, for me, I find beauty in everybody.
Yes.
If you have a different look, a different hair texture, like I'm the person who's going to say, hey, sis, you look good today. Go ahead.
Mhm.
Because we don't get that enough.
Right. Right.
And even if I don't know you, I know how that feels when a stranger says something nice
Yeah.
and just compliments you. And it just kind of boosts you because you
Right.
don't know what people are going through. And you know the messages that we get all day in
Mm-hmm.
on TV, at the job,
Mm-hmm.
where we're not appreciated. So
Yeah.
again, being intentional about just supporting each other, because for some people, not having a relaxer and wearing an afro, that's a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because going back to what Rhonda said, being at home, your family might be like, well, why are you wearing your hair like that? You look like
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
you look raggedy. Is something wrong?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
just kind of giving that support. I always try to do that for people because it's not easy for everybody. Like hair can be a revolutionary experience for some people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I went through this process, I was away from home. I don't know that either one of my parents would have said anything. My dad shouldn't have said nothing because he had an afro his whole life. And my mom did. She relaxed her hair. She wore her hair natural. She wore wigs. So I don't think they would have said anything. But I'm just saying that to say that I was on my own, kind of liberating myself, learning myself,
Yeah.
figuring things out on my own,
Mhm.
trying different things.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Sharad. I'm gonna get to you in a second, Carrie. But I was while you were talking, it reminded me of the story I shared with you all before. My daughter Brandy, when she came to me and said, "I'm going natural," I was like, no, you're not." And it had more to do with how people would perceive her
Mhm.
as she was beginning to go to work and those sorts of things. How would people perceive you? Oh my God. Everything about Brandy's natural hair, I absolutely love. And to be totally honest with you, I really, Brandy says, sure did. LOL, she's in the comments. But I really am sad about the years of tormenting her with relaxers or the pressing comb
Mhm.
because there was always this energy that she conveyed when I was brushing and combing because I think Brandy was in high school. I was still combing and brushing her hair to make it look a certain way. We go flip it, we go, all of that kind of stuff. And all the while, she had a longing for something different. Not only that, it was damaging to her sensitive scalp.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So here I
Mhm.
was trying to make her fit in
Mm-hmm.
what was perceived as beautiful when all the while what was hidden as a result of me trying to relax it was only asking to come out, was only asking to, hey, let me be me, let me be my authentic self.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you all, that's when I began to see my daughter's confidence
Yes.
surface when I moved out the way and took those restraints off of her hair. Um, Now, for me, I'll cut mine when I realize it'll grow back. It's been shorter than short. It's been, I tried to weave for a moment till somebody told me how ridiculous it looked, and it was a bank in Cincinnati when one of my customers came in one day and said, "I'm so glad you finally took that mess out your head." That was back in 1980 something. So you can only imagine. I knew how to do. I had the needle and everything. Now you see, I shave it off on the sides and everything. Uh, you know, and get up and preach. Because if you're concerned, if you think that my hair is what defines me.
Yeah.
And you have no idea about my relationship
That's
with
it.
God, so I
Yeah.
need to convey that to you.
Mhm.
So I'm thankful for you all, that if you want to relax, as Sharon said, relax.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
you want to wig it, if you want to do whatever, do it. But Jerry Lee and this short hair thing, thank you, Jerry. But you have to, it's about what is it that you want, not
Yeah.
what
Mhm.
somebody else wants for you.
Yeah.
So I know we got to get ready to go, y'all. This conversation's getting so good. But Carrie, I need for you to go ahead and chime in, because I've always known you with a shorter haircut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, Michelle, did you want to say something after Sharon finished? Because you looked like you wanted to say something.
Just a quick, but I
Yeah.
could wait. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. I remember I wanted to not relax my hair anymore, but I kept hearing people say you have to wait to get that promotion. You have to wait to get to a
Mm.
certain professional level before you can do what you want with your hair. And I said okay, and I waited and figured okay, I can't do it. But now when I got a certain position, I said okay, now I'm here. I can now do, which now sounds completely ridiculous. Like I was actually waiting for permission to do what I want with my hair.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
just that's all. I just wanted to throw
Yeah.
that in there.
I went through that at work as well.
Yep.
We couldn't wear braids.
Mm-hmm.
And when I
Wow.
decided that I want my hair braided, I walked in there with the braids and had color in them. And I dared anybody to say something to me because I said, you know what? If this job is for me, I'll have it. And if it's not, I won't, because
Mhm.
you cannot keep telling me I got to look the way you want me to look
Mm-hmm.
to be in a position. So I braid up all the time. My little grandbaby did this for me today.
And you cute with it too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, like, I this is this it's so interesting to think about my personal hair journey. And I have some of what everyone has said is sort of reminded me of different phases. So when I was younger, I went to a predominantly white school as well. And so back in those days, all the little white girls had curly perms, right?
Mhm.
Not the straight perms. So I didn't know the difference.
White
Um,
Jerry curls.
Right. But I didn't know the difference. So I wanted my hair to be curly like the little Jerry curls, that the curls that the white girls had.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, bless her heart, as a single mother, had this little white lady put a curl in my hair, but she put a white girl curl in my hair. So as you can imagine, that didn't work out too well. The other thing, though, that I think is interesting that we've been referring to but haven't really spoken about specifically is not only is it hair texture, but also hair length.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in a time and age where, extensions, not even weave anymore, right? Where extensions are common and white girls do them just as much as black women. But there was a time that I know one of the things, back to what Sharon was saying about this whole liberation and what I said earlier, there was a time that my family was like, don't cut your hair. We want your hair to be long. Well, it's just going to get to a certain length. That's fine. That's not anything that's ever been important to me, because I was not one of those young ladies who knew how to do her hair well. So it was just better for me to figure out something else to do with it. But I think it's really interesting, and it's amazing to me to see the embracing of natural hair. I mean, literally, I have been natural for almost 25 years. And I remember one of my grandmother's friends, so she would have been about my grandmother's age, who is now 99. She was like, oh, Carrie, that's kind of cute, but they're not wearing their hair like that. And so while I may have been ahead of the curve at the time, never would I have imagined that this is the conversations and these are the ways in which we would see people. But it's always been important for me to feel like I had some say and some sense of agency around it. Now, I have endured both good and bad. I happen to have one of those textures that's naturally sort of wavy and or curly when it starts to grow out longer. And I remember just a couple years ago, I was in a store and someone said to me, oh, I like your hair, as if mine was okay because of the texture of my hair. But somebody else, he was like, those other people, they need to do something different. And I thought to myself, we're still not there yet, right? So I'm with Sharon on, like, however you want to express yourself. Part of it is, as Rhonda pointed out, are things that we do to ourselves. And so I've become very intentional with our children about helping them to embrace their natural hair texture,
Mhm.
whatever it is. And whenever they compare it to, oh, well, I want it to be straight like this person, or I want it to be this way, to really help them understand that there's beauty in it, and to appreciate what they have. And I think that's the biggest thing that we can do. Not only not judge one another, but also help each other to find the beauty in whatever it is that we feel comfortable in doing and expressing ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Thank you, Carrie, so much for adding that comment. You know, because we are way over time, and I know that Floyd has cooked dinner for Rhonda. She's tried to get to that roast. Uh, Floyd is her husband. He cooked dinner. They have roast tonight. But I just want to really throw this out here because I promised Rochelle Christopher that we would have this part of our discussion. And that is this whole idea of beauty in the fashion industry and in Hollywood. You know, what we have not talked about tonight is, let's be honest, brothers can sometimes be hard on sisters when
Yes.
it come to our hair, right? You know, they say, well, you won't go swimming because you'll mess up your hair. But then when we wear our hair natural and short, sometimes they are the first to resist that as a standard of beauty. And
Mhm.
so I think there is some acceptance that we have to start getting with concerning our own folks within the community, our black men within the community. But I'm gonna tackle this in real quickly, Rochelle, and I do apologize. This conversation is so rich, but I want real quickly for a couple of you to speak on colorism and hair and how it's perceived in the fashion industry and in Hollywood. This is going to be a real quick you got 1 minute rounds, okay? So my first thing of course is when we Holly Berry, that she was the uh Diana Carroll. Those were the folks, Dorothy Dandridge, people like that. Those were the folks that, to me, that were we've elevated in Hollywood. And even now, Rhonda, Hollywood, you hair, colorism.
My thing is this, and this is what I would say to everybody: don't make it about your skin or your hair. Make it be about the opportunity and your destination that God has for you. If it
Mhm.
be God's will, you're going to get that part no matter what you look like, no matter what your hair looks like, no matter what you wear, no matter what somebody says. Just
Mhm.
wait on God and let Him be the one that blesses you. And Hollywood, to me, is so fictional anyway. I don't even they don't matter to me. I'm sorry, but I say don't let it be a color thing. Don't let it be something that divides us as a people anymore. But just say, hey, if it's God's will, I'm gonna get that part no matter what I look like.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Michelle?
So I think that Hollywood and the fashion industry is a little different in certain areas because although Hollywood to me is still not there in terms of acceptance and embracing of natural hair,
Mhm.
but in fashion, because I've grown up looking at all these magazines, I've seen where they have kind of moved, and now you see a lot of women like Alex, one of the first models who came from Sudan, Iman, even though her hair was long, but you see a lot more dark skinned women whose hair is natural and short,
Mhm.
and in some cases shaved, that are on magazine covers now more so than you will in Hollywood.
Mhm.
Outside of certain movies like Black Panther and specific types of movies, I think while both industries still have a ways to go and it's still dominated by European lens, I think I see less of it in fashion as I do in the film industry.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Sharon? Sharon Lynn?
I will say that I do notice more natural hairstyles in different TV shows. So I appreciate that. It's not definitely not where it should be, but I am noticing it more.
Mhm.
Um, I was watching The Rookie, and there's a little girl on there And her hair was so kinky and curly and tight. And I was just like, and I was just really appreciating it because nobody took nobody tried to put a wig on her, nobody tried to straighten it. They just let it be. And that's just something that you don't really see that often. So when I do see it, I appreciate it. But there's still a long way to go. And as long as certain people are still in control of what we should look like, it's still going to be kind of that same thing until we get more control about who gets cast in certain things, until they stop acting like, well, it can only be one Black person. And we see the same Black person in every movie. They're that one token. I'm like, I know it's other Black actors out there. Why you keep putting the same person up there? I want to see some variety. And you are starting to see a little bit more of that, but we still have a ways to go.
Yeah. All right, Caroline.
I mean, it's all been said. I think it's all been said. The the one thing that I want us to guard ourselves against is this idea of what becomes trendy. So at one point it was trendy to have a Black football coach, right? And so everybody tried to do it. Then it was trendy to have one Black woman with natural hair. So everybody started doing it. And so I don't want us to rely on it's difficult because you need to see representation in many ways, but I don't want us to rely on those avenues, particularly fashion, because I noticed that they have a lot more diversity in models, but sometimes I feel like they try to do it in a way that makes it so exotic and unique, as opposed to just embracing that's part of our culture and part of who we are. And the other side of Hollywood, there's stories like Viola Davis just did her memoir, and you hear like in the most recent years, although she is now the third Black woman to be an EGOT, she had all of this history and pain that she went through. And still, even in Hollywood, as well respected as she is with the craft that she has, people still have things to say about her. So I think these conversations are critical. It's good to notice where they're showing up, but ultimately we have the responsibility to validate ourselves.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much. This has been such a fruitful conversation. As you all can see, we could probably go on for another hour, but that roast is waiting for Rhonda. But before we go, I want to remind you of this something exciting we have coming. So hang in there for me just a few more minutes, okay? All right. So, yeah, we have little commercials now, y'all. We have to create them ourselves until we get that spot, on the network. But we are excited about what's to come as we honor the legacy of my late husband, Sharon's dad. We're excited about the Black Church Leadership Program that we will introduce in August 2023. In the meantime, I'm Reverend Rebecca Burrow. I want to thank each of my guests, my sister, Rhonda Houston, Michelle McFarlane, Carrie Hepburn Brown, Sharon Burrow Anderson. I want to thank Jerry also for being a part of the conversation. Marissa, who am I forgetting, you all? I'm forgetting somebody. Hillary Van Dyke. Who was also part of this series that we've done over Black History Month 2023. That means y'all got to come back next Black History Month, but don't be surprised if I call you before 2023 is out to get you here again to talk. Thank you all so much for sharing from your hearts, for your vulnerability, just for keeping it real. and being honest about your own personal experience, your lived experiences, we like to say, and for entrusting the Tuesday Get Together Talk audience with your narratives. Thank you all. I'm Reverend Rebecca Burrow. Please make sure you continue to follow us on www.reconciliationandequity.com. You can always find us on Facebook at Reconciliation and Equity, same as Instagram at Reconciliation and Equity, and of course on YouTube at Reconciliation and Equity. Thank you to all of those that have hung out with us way past our time. Thank you so much for the listening audience, for participating, for sharing all of your responses tonight. You can go back and watch this video. It'll be on Facebook and on YouTube. Make sure you share it with your friends. Share it with young, especially our young women, our young girls that are really struggling with how they look. And make sure you share these videos. There's 3 parts to this series. So share, share, share. Thank you all again. Say good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night,
Good night.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody. It's been
Thank
So I'm
you.
going to ask
wonderful.
guest conversationalists to hang out in the studio for a few minutes as we say good night to you all. Be blessed, and we will see you not next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. God bless you all. Good night.